with great power comes great responsibility. I have no power. I guess I have some responsibility? Anyway, as probably like the only blind film critic on YouTube talking about this kind of stuff, I saw that this existed and I wanted to talk about it and give at least some thoughts and feedback for these students anyway. At DePaul University, there's actually a class for accessible cinema that's taught by Matt Lauterbach, and sorry if I messed up your name, by the way. And they actually, this semester, had the opportunity to produce some audio description for some silent films from way back in the day. They actually got to look at the films of George Mealy, and if I butcher that last name, yep. I mean, I know who he is. I went to film school, and he's had that iconic rocket into the moon shot that has been used so many times across cinema. I mean, he's like the father of science fiction films, I guess you could say. So, and he was doing this stuff way before anyone else. Like, his era was basically turn of the century. Like, he kind of stopped making film around the same time, like, Hollywood made that Klan recruitment film that we kind of just don't talk about anymore. Anyway, it's now used as, for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's Birth of the Nation, and Birth of the Nation was used widely as a Klan recruitment video for a long time. So, meanwhile, this dude's over here making sci-fi films. He's using practical special effects, and actually, like, I mean, like, the medium has just started, and he's already, like, sprinting ahead. He's, like, down the line, way ahead of everybody else. Trying to figure out how to further a medium that just existed. It's like being handed a computer, like the first computer, and then immediately writing like an AI program and being like, well, I did it. What? I started the internet. Yeah, but we just started computers. I know. I have the internet. Yeah, he really hit the ground running, and I think he's a big influence for a lot of directors. One of them, definitely Martin Scorsese, which is one of the reasons why I think he tackled the film Hugo to begin with, because it references this director within the context of the film. He had Ben Kingsley playing George, and so you get to see a little bit of that within the context of Hugo. Otherwise, it's just the random kids film that Martin Scorsese decided to direct. But I think it's I think it's the fact that it incorporated ever so briefly, this love of cinema, and somebody that Martin Scorsese, I'm sure, respected a great deal. Positive that's there. I know Scorsese's a film historian, a film buff, and speaks a lot on early cinema, so it did not surprise me at all. But I'm sure George has a lot of fans across major directors who have probably looked at his work and found inspiration. Feels like, I'm sure Guillermo del Toro, he would strike me as being somebody who would be a really early fan of this guy's work, but also a lot of the guys who started out doing practical horror. It wouldn't surprise me at all if those guys, even somebody like Sam Raimi, to look at what he was doing when he was doing it, like right around the turn, like 1900 to 1910 was sort of like the peak of his movement. He made, like possibly thousands. I know it was at least hundreds of little shorts over the years. Of course, many of them have been lost to time, but luckily some of them have not. And they're public domain, which means anybody can touch them. So, of course, some of them have been restored, specifically this Trip to the Moon, which is iconic. And now it has been audio described, which is amazing. So, big thanks to Matt and his class. And let's talk about A Trip to the Moon, because I have the freedom to be able to do whatever I want. I'm not one of those weird sponsored critics where I'm like, Hi, I want to talk about a trip to the moon. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about my sponsor, soap. Because obviously, when people think of soap, they think of film critics. So this makes a logical promotion tool. So I do actually have to review things. I can't just. I'm not like a hype machine that somebody had bought and paid for. Where I just sit and be like, "Hey guys, have you played this new game on your phone? It's amazing." Uh, so yeah, so I do have some thoughts, and I know my friends already chimed in. They had the benefit of having feedback from two people I know very well, Robert Kenjit and Cheryl Green, who are fantastic, and I'm sure gave some amazing feedback um, to the students. And I didn't watch all the films because I want to talk about conceptually the audio description for this film, and not I'm trying not to talk about like one person specifically. Luckily, a bunch of people worked on this film. I think the narrator ends up taking like all of the flack sometimes. Like I was listening to a conversation yesterday at the audio description conference, and they hosted by American Council of the Blind, and they were talking about it TTS, and they said there are a lot of bad narrators out there. And it's like, huh, are there? I mean, to be a bad narrator, you have to kind of just be bad at pronouncing voices, and I mean, your voice has to be bad. You're talking about somebody who has a bad voice, who doesn't speak well. I think if you're talking about bad audio description, that's a different thing, because that's like everybody who comes together to pick something out. If you're going to call somebody out on their specific job, be sure that that's actually what you mean, and you don't just mean, I've heard bad live audio description, like bad real people, human audio description, because a lot of that's not the narrator's fault. It could be the sound mixing, it could be the script that they were given in the first place. I've learned that there can be contractual obligations, anything like that. So I'm not here to obviously rain on a student's parade. I think this is awesome, and I hope they continue to do this in the future. As far as the narrator's voice, I thought she was lovely. I would love to listen to her narrate more things. So, kudos. Hire her. As far as the trip to the moon, I don't even know how to grade this film. I don't know that it's possible. This film transcends me. It's like standing in the shadows of an iconic film. So I'm not really going to be grading the film. I feel like it's like, how do you? How would I dare to do that? How would I have the audacity to grade this film that has inspired so much other stuff? It is I can't. But let's talk about the audio description, because I do have a couple thoughts. First of all, the audio description it goes all in. Again, this is a silent film. This is before the talkies, so yes. And it does actually, it benefits from doing both the, like what's in English on the screen and also what's in French, because George was a French director, so obviously a lot of the text is in French. And I thought this was really interesting because it's easily applied here, because the narrator never has to worry about dialogue to trample on. So she can just talk the whole time. She can just have a conversation with us for 15 minutes. It's just, she can do whatever she wants. There's nothing to stop. There's no, like it's an easy test run for somebody to just try conceptual narration. Because you don't have to work around dialogue. You don't have to try to interject. You can just talk. And I was thinking about how this works, and when you use one narrator's voice and you're using two different languages, and it was a little weird to hear the English and the French read kind of simultaneously. I wasn't always sure, because I don't speak French, if if what she was saying in English was actually a translation of the French, or if we were expected to know what the French was. obviously, I did pick up the fact that this had it was denoted as being from Cannes, and I feel like this film predates Cannes, so it's possible it was re-released in Cannes, so that's sort of like an addition to the film. I don't know, there were a lot of stuff that we're talking about, like the restoration and who restored it and how it came to be. So it's one of those sort of like re-release narrations where there's all this additional stuff that wasn't in the original title that you're also having to describe because somebody came along years later and restored it, touched it up, found missing footage, whatever it is. They did it. So it's not like the original. It is like an additional version of the film with a little bit extra credit to people who very much were not alive when this film was created. So this film was restored in 2011, and now it's on Vimeo with audio description, so we've come a long way. Somehow I feel like George probably knew that something like Vimeo would come his way. He was thinking outside the box way before everybody else was. This film's features space travel. Like, let's talk about that, because we hadn't actually traveled to space yet. I don't know if we've done the math, but nobody had been in space yet. So he had to actually imagine, at least in some sort of, have some sort of concept of space travel in this film of how to send somebody to the moon. And this is back when we thought, aliens were everywhere, and the concept of aliens, of course, there's moon people. But yes, and that's kind of how the film plays out. And we get a lot of great audio description. There was a segment in the beginning where there was a lot of text, and it had to be read really quickly. And I'm going to tell you that put me off. When I first started losing my vision, the first thing that when people were sitting down and going over sort of accessibility with me, is the thing that I noticed is from people who have been blind for a long time, their audio description, their narrators on their devices, whether it was a laptop or a phone, were talking at an absolutely ridiculous pace. I felt like I was listening to some sort of specific language. Like, I couldn't even understand what it was saying, even now, I don't have my stuff up nearly at the speed of some other people, because I actually want to process the information, and when it goes up too fast, I feel like I miss a couple things, and I think there's no way possible that if you listen to it for an extended period of time, if you read an entire news article, that you feel like you're taking everything in. It felt like it was turned up, like the speed was turned up so that we could squeeze all of this in. And it's so bizarre because I don't think was there a need for that here? I question it because, again, it's a silent film, and there's no dialogue to trample. So if she was reading something even talking fast like I'm talking right now, you wouldn't need to actually click it up. It's actually done in a way where I'm pretty certain they had to use technology to do it, is what I'm saying. Like, it's actually, I don't think she actually speaks that fast. It'd be amazing if she did, but I don't think she actually speaks that fast without getting her tongue tied. It felt like the audio speed was turned up, which is becoming a thing now. So maybe people like that. I don't know. You can watch shows now at like a faster pace because we have such an attention span problem where we can't even watch a show at its normal pace. We have to be able to turn up the rate of a show and watch it faster. It has to be. Anyway, so I wasn't a fan of that, but I can understand that there will be some people who will be. I haven't actually seen that done in a feature-length film before, on any level, or on a TV show. I haven't heard them click up the rate of speech to try to squeeze in You know, I feel like if you look at, I guess probably the best example would be Star Wars. The opening scrolls in Star Wars, there's a lot of text. And yet somehow the narrator has enough time to get through the text in a given period of time at the rate at which he normally speaks. So I'm hoping this isn't something that we're teaching people to do for the future, because it would drive me insane slowly to hear things read at that speed. I don't want narration to head in that direction where we feel like we have a limited amount of time, so we're just going to describe everything to you at this robotic super speed, and and actually click it up a notch. And it's in such a weird place because it's like beginning credits. It's sort of like it explains George to the audience, and it was just a little. I guess it was a lot of text for the brief amount of second that it was up on the screen, and we had to have it thrown at us at twice the rate that somebody would have normally spoken. So it kind of just threw me a little bit. But I thought, other than the fact that the language is spoken by the same narrator in different, like as one voice, which kind of confused me because I didn't know if I was getting the translation first and then the French, or the French and then the translation. If you don't speak the other language, then you don't know that the words match up. You know, if you're bilingual, then you're just hearing the same thing read twice. If you're not, then it's like you're hearing your thing, but you're assuming that you're hearing the translation of it. When you hear both languages done by the same narrator, that means that there's an intent to do both. But why? Are we getting the translation, or are we not getting the translation? You know, are you, it's just sort of an interesting thing to think about, because I think I was getting the translation, but it's also possible that I might just be crazy because I don't speak French at all. I can speak a little bit of Spanish. Other than that, un festival in regard the Cannes or whatever that premieres at the beginning of, has premiered at the beginning of a lot of films before that have gone to Cannes. Cannes, that have gone to Cannes, not Cannes, not James Caan, damn it. I've gone to Cannes. I know how to pronounce it. And unlike that, then yeah, it's it kind of made me question a little bit. But the actual description throughout the course of the movie is brilliant. It's beautiful. And if people want to do this to continue to use public domain films like this, silent films, as experimental tools, I think it's great, because it means that we're getting accessible versions of these films up on websites that can be shared, because nobody really owns the rights to this. You know, they just kind of exist. It should be a public domain film. It's in the years of public domain, so I don't know why it wouldn't be. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I feel like this is public domain. Just, you know, I mean, Charade is public domain because of rights issues. Like, nobody owns the rights to Charade, which is why it's on every single streaming service. So, you know, it's possible to just have something in the public domain. Anyway, those are my thoughts. It was really good audio description, especially considering these are students. Just a couple of things about the technique that went into it that I don't see in other films. So I don't necessarily think I need to see them in other films. I think when I get English audio description, I don't usually get the other language read out to me when it's a foreign language film, although it's super rare that we ever have English audio description on foreign language films. But I'm trying to think about, like, the last one that I saw that actually had it. Might have been All Quiet on the Western Front. I feel like I didn't get German, you know, in the credits. I feel like I just got English. So I guess maybe that's what social audio description wants, is to have both, and just in case somebody is bilingual, that they can enjoy the experience both ways. But it did throw me off, and I'm resistant to, it's not my thing. I'm resistant to turning up the speed of speaking just to try to get stuff in, because I think it could be really monotonous, especially when used in feature-length films, especially when used to try to fit in things between dialogue. You could get a lot going in, and then the audio description becomes sort of unintelligible and kind of a mess. So here it doesn't matter because there's nothing talking against it. It's a silent film. It doesn't matter as much, but it's not something that I would like to see in the future. So, with that said, I said I'm not grading this because this film is ungradable. It really just is. It's one of those films that we use to talk about how the history of cinema has, how far, where it started, where we've come, where we are now, where the influences came from. I mean, this is iconic. There's anybody who grades this film nowadays is just an asshole. It's just, there's no reason for that. It may not be your taste. You may not like silent films, but then you're missing the purpose. You're missing what this guy did in the time period in which he did it. So it's quite an astounding piece of work, and I thought the audio description did a really good job of sharing that with the audience. So thank you so much for doing that, Matt Lauterbach, and your class. I'm not going to single out students. That's weird. I don't feel like calling out students online. They're not working professionally. They didn't get paid to do this. So, but you are getting paid to teach a class. So I'll just give you, and then you can give your students props. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I hope to get more opportunities to do stuff like this in the future. But this was an awesome opportunity. So until next time, I'll see you guys on the other side.